Hi, thank you for joining us for the board meeting tonight. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. When you joined, you heard as an audience member that you are in listen-only mode. You cannot unmute yourself to speak, and also I cannot unmute you. If you'd like to submit a public comment during the public comment portions of the meeting, you can use the questions tool to type your comment and send it to us. If you're on a desktop or a laptop computer, this is located at the top right with the question mark. If you're on a phone, iPad, or tablet, this is located along the bottom toolbar with a question mark and the word questions. Please type your comment in this area and then hit send. This message will come directly to me. I'm the Manager of Marketing and Public Relations, Margaret Heller, and I'll read your comment to the board. The agenda also indicated that public comments may be sent in advance via email to comment@prparks.org. If you're having trouble with the questions tool on the platform, please feel free to email your comment to comment@prparks.org. I'll also continue to monitor that email during the meeting. So if you send anything that way, I will also read it during public comment. So now I'm going to turn things over to President Coyne to begin the meeting.
Great, thank you. Now I just have to find my minutes and my screen here. We're going to call the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. according to my clock, and we need to call the roll. But I'm not hearing anybody. Oh, there we go.
Commissioner Grau?
Here.
Commissioner Harrington?
Here.
Commissioner LeDuc?
Here.
Commissioner Leach?
Here.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Tunnell?
Here.
Commissioner Coyne?
Here.
And Commissioner O'Donnell? Okay. He's not on.
I can't hear you, Matt.
Sorry, just bear with me for a second here. My apologies. I'm just trying to get my agenda up here on the screen because my printer didn't work. All right. We have now opportunity to amend, add or delete an item to the current agenda. Anyone? Hearing no comments, we will move on to the public comment on non-agenda items.
I do have one public comment that was sent in advance. It says, Dear Park Board members, oh, I'm sorry, this is from Jean Costigan. It says, Dear Park Board members, thank you for your service to our community and for your thoughtful financial analysis in your quest to improve our parks while maintaining the budget during the COVID-19 pandemic. I am writing to express my support for the capital funding and completion of the outdoor nature classroom at Main Park this summer for financial, health, and educational reasons. As you know, the line item in the budget indicates an expense of $56,650. However, the actual expense for the Park District will be much lower due to the ongoing fundraising by the Park Ridge Friends of the Parks, the nonprofit arm that supports the Park District. By the end of 2019, the foundation had raised funds to pay for approximately 50% of this project. It is our goal to continue to raise funds for the project through the remainder of 2020, thus lowering the capital requirement funded by the Park District. Although the science of the pandemic is not yet settled, several facts support the viability of outdoor education. Most notable, during the April 24th White House Daily COVID-19 press briefing, it was stated that, quote, increased temperature, humidity, and sunlight are detrimental to SARS-CoV-2 in saliva droplets on surfaces and in the air, end quote. She also attached a screenshot of the slide that I could send out later. While a traditional indoor classroom may be filled with recirculated air, an outdoor classroom provides the opportunity for young children to breathe fresh air. The year-to-date statistics on COVID-19 show a negligible risk to young children, which potentially means this would be a Park District facility that parents would not be hesitant to utilize. I believe the completion of the outdoor nature classroom will encourage parents to send their children to school in the fall. In addition to the fundraising for the outdoor nature classroom during the past 2 years, the Friends of the Parks has also raised thousands of dollars to plant trees on Park District property and more than $15,000 for scholarship to residents in need to participate in the Park District programming. As we look at new projects for 2021 and beyond, it is important for us to show our donors the progress we are making on capital projects to encourage more giving from our generous community members. I hope that the board will vote to fund the outdoor nature classroom at the meeting tonight. Sincerely, Jean Costigan, President, Park Ridge Friends of the Parks Foundation. That is my only public comment so far.
Great. Thank you. All right, now that I have the right agenda up, I can, I think I have the right agenda up. Hold on. There we go. If there's no other comments, then we'll move on to my first item, which is a motion to cancel the June. I'm going to move to cancel the Thursday, June 11th, 2020 special board meeting.
Second, Commissioner Leduc.
We need a roll call vote.
Is there any discussion?
I don't think so.
I'll go ahead. Commissioner Grau,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell, Commissioner Tunnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Coyne.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now I move to call for special board meetings to be held on July 2nd, 2020, August 6th, 2020, and September 3rd, 2020 at 7 p.m. to receive updates on the COVID-19 situation and any other district items to be determined. This action will be formally ratified at an actual board meeting with physical presence at a later date.
Second, this is Commissioner Grau.
Any discussion? Hearing none, let's call the vote.
Commissioner Harrington, Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell, Commissioner Tunnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington, Commissioner Coyne.
Yes. All right, so that's good. We're going to have more meetings, lots of fun during the summer. All right, so now we turn it to the crux of the meeting, to our Executive Director, Gail Mountcastle, for our update, executive summary, and then a presentation.
Thank you very much. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So first, I'm just going to give a couple general updates before we get into the presentation, which has a lot of detail on the other updates with our COVID situation. First, I just wanted to mention that, boy, it seems like a long time ago, but last weekend we opened the driving range, and then we opened the rink the following Monday. And then today we opened the batting cage. I think we had 2 customers before the rain started coming in, but as you'll see in the presentation, The rink and the range participation has been very good. The weather's been very good. People are anxious to be outside, and everything seems to be going very smoothly from everything I've heard and seen with signage and the staff and getting used to all the new protocol that we've put in place and the trainings. The one comment we did hear, we've heard a little bit about, and April can chime in if she's heard other things, that there's a little getting used to the no cash at the registers. And I think that the driving range, participants are used to, some of them are just used to bringing cash. So I still think it's a good idea that we keep with that practice, and the staff is explaining to them, well, we just wipe off the machine. So it's, it's definitely more sanitary. So that's, that's the only thing. And to me, that's a minor thing from the OAKTON driving range and the rink so far. They're getting used to, they've got really well set up at the rink where they've got them waiting at 4 different stations. They're putting their items in different places, their personal belongings, and they go in one door and out the back of the door, and they've got it staggered. And I saw 2 groups of 10 on the ice today, and it just was very well organized. So very happy with what I saw with that today. The brochure for June and July, hopefully you took a look at that. That went out this weekend. Registration began for people that were registered in camps. That started Saturday, and then any new registrants, residents started on Monday. And the staff did an amazing job, and I want to thank them for all their creativity and hard work. Of course, everybody throughout this situation, but the brochure was just, something that they had to wipe clean and start over. And so we'll hear a little bit more about how that's going, but just a great job by all on that. The latest guidelines that we got came out Friday night at about 9 o'clock. And they came from IDP, well, from IEPD, but from IDPH, who is basically dictating the swimming pool rules. And as we all know, phase 3 started I think it was May 26th, and then we got these new guidelines on the 5th of June for phase 3. So that was very surprising that we got these over a week after the phase 3 started. So we called an emergency meeting Saturday, and that is why we are also meeting today. I asked the board, and thank you very much for obliging, on moving this meeting up because we want to make sure that we are, whatever decision comes out of the pools, that we have given it the most time possible to start getting people into the water if we choose to do so in phase 3. And what was approved was swimming lesson. The activities that are approved are swimming lessons, diving, therapy pool, and lap swim. There was no guidance given on open swim or phase 4. This did not include water parks, splash pads. Well, wait a minute. Let me make sure I get this right. Water parks and bathing beaches are not to be opened in phase 3. The splash pads are also included in that order. So the only thing is that they specified were those specific activities. So that was on pool. So we'll hear more about that, of course, later in the conversation tonight. The other thing I wanted to mention that came out and is on the governor's desk is Senate Bill 2135. And our attorney will correct me if I'm wrong, but basically it's passed both houses of the Illinois legislature, and it's on Governor Pritzker's desk. I believe, Scott, you said since June 4th that it's been on his desk. This bill would amend the Open Meetings Act and addresses remote participation in meetings of public bodies while under disaster proclamations, which we currently are. The new rules include making a determination that a physical quorum is not feasible due to the declared state of disaster, so that commissioners can participate by remote electronic means. So there'll be a new caption whenever this is passed at the top of the agenda, basically declaring that disaster. Then we also will open up the boardroom as a place where the public can come if they want, with a staff member there, of course, and somebody with the capability to allow the audience present to see and hear all other participants. So our staff has worked and is working through that if that Senate bill gets signed into law. The challenge, of course, is if you think about it, because we're limited to 10 people at the groups of 10 in phase 3 at this point. So, you know, if there was a subject that people were very interested in, and we have at minimum down in the boardroom, even though there's others of us in the building, but there's 2 people that have to be in the boardroom to work the electronics. So that allows for 8 people to be in the room. So if we had a large crowd, what we would have to do is rotate them in, you know, to make their comments, and then they could leave, and then they could watch it electronically, but we could only accommodate 8 people in the room. So I think that, oh, and the only other update I wanted to give is about 3 o'clock this afternoon. I was directed to a new CDC update by another director that evidently changed the CDC information on playgrounds. So they give guidelines for visiting parks and recreation facilities, and then they include playgrounds. But this does, in the governor's order, playgrounds are still listed as not allowable. So I just wanted to let you know that in case you hear, you know, somebody saying, you know, something about playgrounds, because I know everybody is anxious to open up those playgrounds. So that is my executive summary, and I'm open to any questions that anybody might have on that.
Can I ask what the
Nope.
CDC said about playgrounds?
They were just giving guidelines about, you mean what exactly?
That I guess it would be that they could be used.
I mean, they don't really come out and say that. They just say, carefully consider use of playgrounds and help children follow guidelines. They said, do carefully consider use of playgrounds. So sure, you could probably take that as a yes. And then they talk about in communities where there is ongoing spread of COVID, playgrounds can be hard to keep safe because everything we know, they get crowded, social distancing, the surfaces are tough to clean. It can spread when young children touch contaminated objects and touch their eyes, nose, or mouth. If you choose to visit a playground, they give you, you know, the standard directions that we've been giving, you know, 6 feet distance, et cetera, et cetera. So, but if your state issues an order, it's stricter, you know, that's stricter than the CDC, you have to follow the state guideline. So that still doesn't allow for our, at this moment, unless something's changed since we've gotten on this meeting, it does not allow for us to use playgrounds. Right, Scott?
Right, and nothing has changed. I've gotten a couple emails since we started from different people, but I've been checking and nothing has changed. They were just regurgitating some of this. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the general summary? And if there's not, we can go into the presentation.
Yeah, so Gail, can you kind of go over what you and I talked about on the phone about how this next part is going to flow so that the commissioners know?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Sure. And while we wait to pull up the presentation, so the main goal tonight, you know, we're going to review very quickly. I'm not going to go through the general information at the beginning unless anybody wants to stop and talk about it. And then Superintendent Armour will review the, updates on anything that's, you know, we have updates on. Granted, we've had 1 or 2 days of registration for the programs and facilities that are running. And we're not going to planning on spending a lot of time on those at all unless people have questions. And the same with the facilities that are running. So we're not going to go back and go over all of that information. We've listed out the items that we're discussing for phase 4, so that our next, the next big, of course, phase 4, right? And we don't have all the guidelines for phase 4, so we're making a lot of assumptions. But the point of adding this meeting was to be able to discuss and for the commissioners to feel like they had time to absorb the information. We just updated that presentation last night, but a lot of the same information from the last meeting. And we'll go through each area, and we'll start with the programs as an update, and then we'll go to the fitness center, and then Superintendent Armour and I or any one of the other staff will jump in and talk through the proposal, and then we'll stop for questions and conversation about each of the different numbered areas that you see. So the fitness center, the activity center, the outdoor aquatic facilities. And then after that, we thought we would go, because those are all the things that have to do with the vote, that we would vote, try to vote. And the point of the vote on the agenda is just really if the board is comfortable moving on all these facilities or some of them. I think that, like I had communicated to the board, the sooner we know, the better it's going to be for getting these facilities open, is quicker for the public and getting everything in place. The one thing I do want to leave tonight, hopefully, is a vote on the pools because of the timing of preparations for pools. So that is the goal that I've set out tonight, if that works. Any questions on that? Okay, move to the next slide. And anybody just please stop me, obviously, if you have questions. And I'll stop after each area, as I stated. I'm just, again, this is just for everybody's knowledge that these are the agencies, all the regulatory agencies that we're working with, getting advice from, and then listening to. So the governor's order is a law and we have to follow it. And then from there, the governor gives it, I shouldn't say gives it, but works with, for example, Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity to make the rules and the guidelines that are in the order. And then for the pools, it's going to be the Illinois Department of Public Health. The rest of these are people we work with on advice and guidance, our agencies that are available to us, and the attorneys and our different associations. Where we say the plans are, you don't have to go back, but the last line on there, again, you'll hear reiterated throughout this presentation, and every time we talk about this, plans continue to change daily, hourly, and that is, why there's a lot of estimates in here, and that's what they are, is estimates, and we're doing our best with the information that we have available. So we'll continue to adjust as we get further information throughout this pandemic. Next slide talks about the phase 4 and what we know now will be changing. And so this is what a lot of our plans are made on. And we expect to get more detailed information and guidance once those are announced from the governor as we move into the next phase. I'm sure all of you know that September 26th is the date that he said would be the earliest when he made the announcement about phase 3. So you can go to the next slide. Here's what we were able to open in phase 3 in our parks. So this includes everything except for playgrounds and drinking fountains. So all of that was opened. This is these two amenities, as I've already stated, on June 8th were listed as not allowable as drinking fountains and playgrounds in the governor's order. So repeat information. I'm not going to go through all the protocols, just to say that this is just a snapshot, and I've been around to the facilities that are open, that are about to open, and it's really coming together, and there'll be shifting and changing as needed, but they're all pretty standard protocols, but then they get specific for each facility and every room. and very detailed manual that we've put together. So that's all I really have to update the board on that slide. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Armour, and she's going to walk us through the next portion of the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. We're starting with camps. So the board had asked for a summary. This, of course, most of these programs just started registering either Saturday or Monday. So this is a summary of our virtual camps, the Camp in the Cloud. We definitely have some camps that are going to run, but right now we're seeing registration coming in slow. I did check this afternoon, and we do have some more coming in slowly but surely. And then the camp in the parks, again, we have had a few more coming in since yesterday. We're up to about 45 or 46, I believe, as of this afternoon. So right now, I'm pretty consistent with what I've been hearing from other districts who have started their enrollment already, that they've had smaller registrations for the in-person all-day camps, but we have some coming in. So that's good news. We'll be able to provide at least some pods for whomever might be interested. Summary of some of our general programs. The slides are set up similar to how you saw them a few weeks ago. We've definitely seen some enrollment in the smaller group classes. I will say these athletic programs, we did keep some of the later in the summer programs that we already had people previously registered for. So some of the July and August programs, that's about 100 participants for the in-person, include people previously registered. So definitely some interest in the in-person shorter time frame. And then our preschool and early childhood, we've mainly just seen the virtual programming. Youth programs, we have limited in person, but our virtual seems to be more popular for that age group. And teen programs actually have a few enrolled as well. We changed around our counselor and training program to at least hopefully be able to provide that opportunity for some of the teen age group. Was a little surprised about the Safe Sitter. I thought that one might be a little more popular, but maybe that will be coming in. Special events, we just have a few enrolled for the trivia night, and we're still on hold for the later in the season, August and moving forward special events.
April, is that an adult or family trivia night?
Family.
Thank you.
Our cultural arts program, our theater was very popular earlier in this season and continues to be popular. And we added a few more things and are seeing the enrollment come in there as well. That's bumped up a little bit just in the past day. And same as Wildwood. Wildwood has been doing great with their virtual programs from the get-go, and they've been very popular as well. And that's continued. Moving on to the fitness center, we do have Amy Murin, our facility manager, on hand too, so she's available to answer questions. As a reminder, our fitness center does remain closed to the public in phase 3, but it will be available for one-on-one personal training beginning June 15th, so Monday, and we do have people already signed up beginning Monday, so that's good news. And as Gail mentioned already, the guidelines were released just Friday to allow for lap swim, swim lessons, diving, swim team, and a therapy pool. We would like to open our indoor pool starting on Monday as well for lap swimmers. And then too, in the leisure pool, there's many members that use that for therapy. we're proposing a temporary model for an $8 per visit hourly fee until we reach phase 4, because we're really not staffing the facility except for when people are scheduled to come. And we anticipate that would be a break even or minimum surplus, depending on how many people, would register to drop in. We did not see the popularity in our virtual fitness programs, unfortunately. We had 24 people originally sign up for our first offering of the 28-day shred, and now 8 participants in June. And our outdoor fitness class sign up also started on Monday and begin next Monday, the 15th. And just looked at some registration right before this. They're also slow coming in, but we have several classes that are already have enough minimum to run, and a few that are even close to being filled. The kids classes are a little slow too, but there's a few people registered, so we'll see how that continues in the next week or two. This slide.
Super.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry. Can we go back to the other slide?
Sure.
So I'm sure Superintendent Armour, you feel like you are programming 6 park districts this summer as all these evolutions have unfolded here. I can imagine each step of the way. But as we're talking about the indoor pool, are you going to go into more detail on the next slide as far as what we're looking at for phase 4, or are you just I'm just trying to understand the differential here between what's on this slide and then what we're going to talk about next, because it says phase 3 remains closed, but I'm assuming the indoor pool is closed right now as well.
We're proposing to open it based on the new guidelines just for lap swim. And then if space allows, we could expand to swim lessons.
Larger.
We walk through today. We probably do more private swim lessons than group lessons at this point. But depending on the need for the lap swimmers, we thought that would be a good test run to see what temporarily what a schedule would look like. And then moving into phase 4, we could actually schedule more swim lessons. And we're looking at this as its own facility. We walked through today and are proposing people actually come in from the outside entrance and go directly to the pool. We'll have the family room, changing rooms ready for them if needed. And so it's really just an in and out from that side door for phase 3.
Okay, that makes sense. So really we're looking at the pool as like its own facility right now, and everything else is kind of closed around. And then are you planning on, if with board approval, flipping the switch as soon as you can, but would you be taking reservations for that lap swim and therapy pool as well, or is that like a first come, first serve?
We're going to take reservations for the lap pool. So then we could have staff there as appropriate, since we're not going to be staffing the front desk during phase 3. It'll just be, coming in with the few lifeguards and the managers there to get the staff ready and the patrons ready.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That explains the phase 3 versus what's on the next page. Thank you.
Well, and with just finding this out, some of the phase 4 information, what's in the budget projections, we had some lifeguard staffing in there, but we weren't even sure we were going to be able to open the indoor pool or the outdoor pool. So some of this is just new and evolving.
Thanks.
So this slide is pretty similar to what you saw last time. This is, again, just what we use to work on our budget projections. And so these are the hours that we proposed as part of the budget projections. And the fitness center is also being offered as an on-site camp location if needed. So, right now the participation is looking pretty low, but if we do need to use it as a camp location, we're kind of reserving some space there. If it's not needed, then we can be creative and move around some of the fitness equipment to accommodate more people, moving on to different levels and possibly in the gym. What we did include, assuming that we'd have the facility capacity of 50 people, which could of course change with the new guidelines, that we were proposing a $10 per visit fee for an hour-and-a-half visit. So that's what's currently in the budget projections, which we started on those quite a while ago. What we've seen since then is that, most of the states that have opened already, rather than what they initially thought with the $10 per visit fee, they're now just moving towards reactivating memberships. And that's what we're now hearing that, other facilities in the community as well as some surrounding communities are doing. The $10 per visit fee is definitely would bring in a lot more revenue to the facility. But the reactivating the memberships would obviously be more popular for the members, and would give them the option to come as many times as they wanted to reserve without having that $10 per visit fee. If they're someone who comes regularly, that would become rather costly. Or we could do a combination of the two, reactivate memberships for those who anticipate coming more often, and then also doing the $10 per visit fee. So that's for the 90-minute workout time slots. Again, the services offered in phase 4 is very similar. I don't think we changed much in this slide besides towards the top, but now we know that we will be able to offer lap swim and hope to expand to swim lessons and aqua fitness. So again, if this phase 3 is only 2 weeks, we'll have a good feel for the timing when the lap swimmers would prefer to be in the facility, and then be able to open it up to other options besides open swim at this point. I don't know if that will be an option. And then again, we'll expand to the indoor group fitness classes, hopefully 5 classes per day. 15 participants is the maximum we anticipate based on our space. And then we'll continue based on popularity to offer the outdoor fitness classes, but we're not going to offer the virtual classes based on what we've seen from this past registration period. And again, the services not offered in phase 4 are still, somewhat unknown on some things. We're not sure if we'll open the shower and locker rooms, but in phase 4, if we have up to 50 people there, that most likely will be something we may need to do. And we'll change a few things in the facility to bring your own mat and towel, the backdoor emergency exit only, no childcare facility rentals or parties, and the basketball, racquetball, pickleball, and badminton, we do not anticipate having that in phase 4 either. Are there any questions or comments about the fitness center?
Hi, April. This is Commissioner Grau. Pickleball and badminton seems like tennis and pickleball that we play outside. Any thoughts on that? Why we would not, or can you tell us why you don't think you would offer them?
Most likely because of the space. We don't anticipate that we're going to have the space, and right now the basketball, they're very competitive at our facility, and we just see that as a challenge with the 6 feet distance.
Oh yeah, not basketball and racquetball. I just meant football and badminton.
And right now it's kind of a puzzle piece. If we have camps, and we'll have the spin bikes in the north gym, we may have some equipment in the north gym, we may not have the space, but again, it's if we rearrange things and see that we might have the space, it's
it's just a lower priority is what you're saying.
Well, no, I think it's just an issue of space, and if we have to spread out the equipment, we just don't have room for everything. If we want to accommodate up to 50 people, we can't accommodate all of the members upstairs based on the space requirements and the square footage.
I had a real quick question, please. Would you guys have to configure the walk patterns for people just to, I know it's kind of a tight space in some of the hallways, so would you like have one way only, or how would you work that with this? I mean, it's still a smaller group, but just to encourage the social distancing.
Yeah, well, we were there today. Amy had some spots marked out, so we've talked about, like specifically in the weight area, if we would put some spots just so people had a visual, and possibly one way up the aisle in the fitness center and out another way. So once we have the space configured at, how we know it's going to end up in phase 4, then we are looking at doing some of that.
Awesome, thank you.
The stairway is pretty wide to go up and down, so I don't think that's too much of an issue. We've talked a little bit about the track and that, there's really not too much room for passing. So when we get the guidelines, we'll be flushing all of those specific things out before we open. But at this point, with the one-on-one training, it's not an issue because there's only going to be minimal people in the facility.
Thank you, appreciate it.
April, it's Commissioner Harrington again. We may be getting into this later, but I'm thinking since we're talking fitness center, maybe talking about staffing and financial projections. So looking at staffing for phase 4, we go from 14 to 55 at the fitness center. Are you thinking through a phased-in approach depending on demand? Because as we're seeing with camps, as we're seeing with summer programming, we're just kind of monitoring to see what registrations look like. I mean, are you looking to move staff back all at once as soon as we hit phase 4, or are you going to take a staggered approach as we see what demand is?
We're taking a staggered approach at every facility. So we don't have people coming back, or we're not hiring until we know we have the participation. And some of the shifts that we're looking at are being filled by full-time staff. And, we obviously have to have enough staff to complete our proper cleaning protocols. So that's, we're working through all of that at this point, but definitely throughout each facility, it's a staggered approach based on need.
That 14 to 55 is a big jump back, day one, not knowing what participation could look like. Right. And then with regards to kind of the pay for, so talking about thinking through creatively a $10 per visit fee versus, keeping memberships on hold and looking at the financials, it seems that, and I don't know what this is based on by way of participation, but if we had robust participation, it looks like the fitness center in the short term through June, July, and August would be operating at a $67,000 loss based on the financial projections. I skipped ahead, sorry. I'm just trying to think through each amenity as a standalone.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure I'm kind of understanding the decisioning here, in that we would be moving forward operating that facility at an almost $70,000 loss in the short term for July and August, moving to phase 4.
And I think, Sandra, if you want to jump in here too, I think some of that is estimates based on all staffing being back in the scenario. When we put in our projections, sorry, I'm trying to pull up the fitness center here, our specifics.
Yeah, there's a large expense in June that may not be happening, I would guess, right? Is that what you're looking at, April?
I apologize. I can't, when I have the screen shared with
right,
with the presentation up, I can't jump ahead. I mean, we can, if you'd like me to fast forward the presentation to those slides, I can go ahead and do that. I feel like I can't speak to it without looking at the numbers.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna say, I can hold that question. I'm just trying to think through this in clumps, because I think this will be a common theme in some of my questions as we look at some of the other amenities, at what we wanting to push forward with our mission and under what guidelines are allowed. However, kind of comparing the financial impact to the district at the same time.
So if
Mhm.
everyone's okay with it, I will just jump ahead and we can jump back.
Sure.
That's all right.
Yes, and phase 3 was based on really minimal participation, and we still have the expenses of the facility. So that's part of what you see in phase 3. And then phase 4, you bring in some of the participation and revenue from the in-person programs, as well as our estimated 50 participants per hour-and-a-half time slot. So the membership coming back and working out, as well as the programs. What we did not have in the budget projections were, we did not have any swim lessons because we weren't aware that that was going to be a factor. So we did not put any revenues in for swim lessons whatsoever. So that's obviously changed.
Right. Just to add on that, so when we looked at when staff kind of did their inputs for phase 3 and the phase 4, I think we knew timing wise, it looked like any kind of programs we wouldn't be starting until mid-June if we were reopening the fitness center. And so like April said, June is really showing kind of more of the expense with less revenue. But if you look at July, it's kind of really more representative, I think, of what we would be looking to offer. And I would call that, kind of more of a break-even-ish budget. And again, in August, not knowing exactly the timing for some of the programs, I think that the revenue, so there's the drop-in activity, and then there is some programming that I think I just used 2 weeks worth, but that's April's explanation is spot on there. So
that June expense is the June expense of the 74,000. Is it revving back up and getting the center up and running again, and you've got to make that initial investment to get back to where we were? Or is it just, well, I can't see May. So was May very similar and just what it costs to operate the facility even without folks in it? I'm just trying to understand what that heavy load number is in June on the expense side.
Yeah, if you bear with me, I have to pull up the detail.
But it's probably a combination.
Yes,
I think
we definitely have utilities.
That's the challenge with a lot of these facilities is they, we still get the, the cost, as you said, Commissioner Harrington, to keep it going, right? All the utilities and everything that we need to do to keep it going, but then plus the revving up for the program. I'm going to guess it's a combo. Well,
it looks like just the utilities are a little over $20,000.
So no matter what we do, we'd be paying that cost, right?
Well, it's very difficult to estimate the utilities for the closure because we hadn't experienced that before. And, we have a new electric contract. Sometimes there's a delay in the billing when we're changing vendors. So, the estimate is based on historical use and not knowing what would be going on with the pools. The water expense is a real big part of utilities. So, I think it's a conservative estimate. If we aren't open, it could be that utilities would be less than that. I can look at what May was, but I'm afraid it's skewed by the electricity, not having all the expense in May that we'll get subsequently.
And Commissioner Harrington, some of the phase 4 is the staffing costs for having the fitness attendants and the instructors back and teaching as well.
And obviously, if the classes don't go, we're not paying the instructors, right? So
Right.
some of that would drop. And didn't you also say, one of you, I think it was April, you said we budgeted lifeguards for phase 4 or 3 at the fitness center, but we did not budget revenue? Isn't that what I heard?
Correct, because we weren't sure if we were going to be able to offer swim lessons.
Okay, so
But
that's the revenue we would see, but we've already got the expense in there for the lifeguards, not the instructors.
because we assumed we need lifeguards for lap swim.
Got it. And then the other thing to point out when we're talking about August for all of this whole plan is that we're assuming we're going to be in phase 4 in August. That was the assumption that was used. So maybe we'll be in phase 5.
Come on, scientists.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you so much for going a little bit deeper into some of those numbers as you talked through the reopening plan. I appreciate it.
Are there any thoughts from the commissioners about the membership versus the hourly? Because that's something that's definitely a change from our last presentation of what we're seeing as different states are reopening and what we're hearing our neighbors are doing.
I think that hybrid of allowing them choice is probably a good opportunity. So people that are not sure that they want to, that they're going to be using the facility quite as much, they can pay the $10 per visit. And then they can, but the membership can be reactivated at the member's choice. It seems like, and we want to do what's right for the park district here. And I think that people that had memberships before and you, and now you say, well, no, you can't have a membership. You know, you were coming 3 times a week, 4 times a week. Now you have to pay $40 a week. Seems a little bit harsh to ask after they've been not able to use the facility for 2 months. Just my thought.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the fitness center or questions or anything anybody needs to talk through?
Yeah, Commissioner Leach. I would echo Commissioner Coyne. I'm fine, Superintendent Armour, with the approach you laid out and having what I call a hybrid or blend approach, knowing that you're going to figure out what works and what doesn't work with that approach and adapt. So I'm fine with the guidance you've given. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Move on to the activity center.
Yes, except I'd like to just point out that actually Commissioner Harrington apologized for sort of jumping to the financial stuff, but that's exactly the way I thought this was going to happen. We finished the conversation on the fitness center, and then we had the conversation about the financials. That's how I think it should work in each of these sections moving forward.
Okay, great.
Will do.
The activity center, as I mentioned at the last presentation, is also being offered as an on-site camp option, only if needed. And phase 4, depending on whether it's needed for camp, as we discussed last time, we may offer minimal in-person programming for adults, and each program will be evaluated individually. We're looking at registration for phase 4 by appointment only. And the STAR membership, we anticipate remaining canceled until phase 5. It's a lot of gatherings and a library, lending closet, and cards and games. And so we don't anticipate the membership until phase 5. At the Activity Center, the virtual programming has also not been very popular. It's definitely been a little more challenging for the senior population. They do participate in the tech time and our free daily dose of fun. The free programs they're interested in, and it's definitely a connection point for them. So we have a few things at each week just to make sure they continue to have a connection with other faces and members. We again had the registration for additional program opportunities that began yesterday, including the STAR recreation programs in a box, a parking lot bingo program, and some additional virtual opportunities. So we'll see how those go. The Brickton Arts Center, on the other hand, has 130 out of their 250 spots filled as of yesterday. And they're still considering whether or not they'll have in-person programs in phase 4. And we also plan on offering our dog obedience classes at the Activity Center as well.
Can we force residents to take the dog obedience class if they leave their dogs off the leash in the parks? Somehow, as a sort of a fine or something? I'm kidding.
So Sandra, I don't know if you want to, I think there's only one slide on this one.
This one actually looks like the loss is about the same as if we were as the budget.
Exactly. When you look at the 3 months together, so again, in June, you see the higher expenses than the revenues because it's kind of the anticipating that the programs at the center would start halfway through the month. So that's why it's lower there. And then the expense increases in July when we have kind of the full offerings and the expectation of all of the staff required for that. And again, in August, just trying to estimate, because a lot of times the classes, are they going to run for the whole month of August, or will it, kind of just, again, these are all estimates. So, but as Gail said, when we add them together, roughly the net looks very similar to what it would have looked like in the budget.
So it's probably time to open it up for comments and questions from the commissioners. No one? Okay, let's keep moving.
Okay, the Oakton Ice Arena open for business. June 1st, we open for rentals and freestyle skaters. We anticipate the entire schedule will remain the same in phase 4 based on the restrictions with space. It's going very well. They have their system down and it's been running very smoothly. As you can see, the rentals and freestyles filled up very quickly. They're still open for, rentals and reservations. Our programs began yesterday, and as you can see, our numbers are doing very well. And where we've had to consolidate, there were some classes that did not run, and they were already filled by rentals. And the speed skating program, actually, they just started registration, which is why that one is at a lower percentage. We do anticipate that the public skate hours will remain eliminated till phase 5, and we still anticipate the rental hours being reduced by 20 hours per week based on the no contact for hockey. We'll continue to have the office area closed for registration. The online registration has been going very well. And we covered all of the modifications, I think, last time of what the plan was with all of the classes, and that's again going very well.
So again, for the ice arena, I would kind of characterize this as a roughly break-even-ish estimate. Again, not knowing for certain how the utilities are going to shake out with, I think we're not open hours-wise quite as long. Is that correct, April?
Right.
As typically.
Correct.
But as estimates go, the minus 3,000, roughly break even-ish.
And I don't think there's any decisions we're asking for because this plan is set to remain unless somebody has an issue with, what's happening in phase 3. But the board approved this in the last meeting. But we'll open up to any questions for the ice rink. But it was more informational on an update basis.
And we might as well stay on this for the batting cage too, because the slides really didn't change, except for to say that we're open and have a prorated agreement with our affiliate as well. So they opened today, as Gail mentioned earlier. Any questions on the batting cages?
Shall I go back?
Yes, I think so.
The driving range opened May 30th, and it was ideal for social distancing. We didn't really have to change anything besides, the cash only and putting up the plexiglass, some of the safety things we've already talked about. As you can see, based on the revenue in the first week, people are coming out in droves. It's been very busy, and the weather has certainly cooperated with our first week of opening. Our budget projections include $6,500 per week in our first week. As you can see, we doubled that. So people were ready to get to the driving range. We plan on keeping the same hours, and our golf classes are a little slow for registration, but the camps are actually now full. Every slot is full, and we have a wait list, so we're going to be working on that. And then the golf classes will, those go throughout the summer. So as we move into the different months, we'll consolidate or combine or cancel as needed.
And just to take a look at the financials here, it's really, I think the estimate is, a little lower than the original budget.
We based it on 80% participation, just because we weren't sure.
Okay, any questions on what's going on at the driving range?
Hi, Commissioner Leduc. I just had a quick technical question. I was wondering, like, with the punch cards, where would the patrons be getting the punch cards? Like, how would they get those?
They would get them at the driving range.
Okay, because I was just trying to figure out, like, would it be contactless, or how is it going to be a machine distributing? Like, just curious how that would work out.
They'd actually have to hand them that.
Okay. Thanks. Just curious.
Hmm?
Should we move on to the?
The fun
Oh,
stuff.
I think that now's the time.
Got 'em
Outdoor
warmed up.
aquatics.
Seeing the success of the driving range, let's move on.
Well, we do have our aquatics manager, Ethan Williams, here as well. He's done all of, similar to Amy Murin, so much of the background work. He can certainly answer really specific questions. Right now, the aquatics, all of the outdoor aquatics facilities remain closed to the public in phase 3, and the budget projections reflect the training of the aquatic staff. Again, all of our budget projections are based on what we knew at the time. At the time, we didn't know anything about lessons, or, we knew the potential for capacities, which is why we didn't even recommend opening in phase 3. And we still don't know if we can open for public swim in phase 4. Our projections do include opening for the public swim sessions based on the 50 capacity in shifts. So in the budget projections that you received, it anticipates a July opening of the full aquatic center, Hinckley and Prospect Park spray pad, and for South Park to remain closed for the season. As a reminder, we did have a project going on there for the entry building. At this time, we don't anticipate parties or rentals. Again, we would require reservation, a 2-hour time block, and then cleaning in between each time block. And then we'd like to give the residents first priority where we can, and non-residents if space allows. We can move on to the next slide. And again, these hours are not set in stone. It's just what we put in place to base our budget projections off of. Depending on what we decide to open and what we're allowed to offer, we would certainly maximize all of our time slots for whatever facility we're able to open and what we're able to do there. So these hours were just used for the projections. So if we can, we anticipate public swim at the aquatic center, some lap swims, some swim lessons, and Hinckley pool. Right now we just have the schedule showing open swim. There's definitely potential to shift swim lessons over there, to do some aquatic classes, some of the aqua classes at either of those locations. And the splash pad, again, we just are showing an open swim, the capacity of 40 based on our space instead of 50. So we list the proposed fees here as well. Any questions here? So this is the same slide that we showed you last time. To the far right shows the projections for opening just the Centennial lap pool and the splash pad and Hinckley. So if you look at the far bottom right, that would, what it would look like just to open those facilities. Obviously, you can take each of these and kind of plug in what it would look like just to open one facility on its own or a combination of.
And if I could jump in, April, just to point out that the scenario projections that we looked at our last meeting contemplated the kind of this 3 columns from the right, total including August, Centennial, the full facility. So with the total loss of an estimated about 270,000. That is what is currently in the projection scenarios. But as April mentioned, any kind of combination, and she's broken them out so that we could look at what we would be able to estimate, and we could make adjustments to the projections based on, whatever the board decides.
Thank you, Sandra.
Can we just quickly go back to the slide previous that shows the how the different pools are going to, that one, perfect. I just want to, I guess I could open it up on my screen here too, I guess. So okay, so lap swim on Centennial would be only open from 6 to 9 a.m. reserved by the hour, and that's that $148,000 number on the 148,000. I'm pointing at the thing like you can see my finger.
On the far right column.
On the far right column, 148,009.
Centennial lap pool only.
That would be if we open just the lap pool, but it would be lap swim and then all of the other activities involved throughout the day. So it's opening that physical pool, not just for lap swim, if we're allowed to have open public swim.
All right, and so I think the question may already be, well, just for my own curiosity, if you were only to open it for lap swim in that time frame, would that cost significantly drop, or would it be, would it, I mean, I guess how much would it drop? Because you still have to fill the pool, you still have to do the other, you still have to have managers there and everything. So that's kind of one of the things that was suggested to me by a resident, that we would at least be able to have people come and swim laps in the morning. I guess they probably swim laps in the morning, and that's why they wanted to do it. So I thought I'd at least ask the question.
To get the facility up and running just for 3 hours of open time, I mean, we would just have the 8 lanes to be reserved at, the hourly rate for 3 hours, and that would be all the revenue we would be getting.
Yeah. And you'd have almost all the same expense.
Right.
Except for the staffing.
That's answered my question. That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Yeah, except for the staffing. I said yes, but except for the staffing.
Right.
So this is Sandra. I just wanted to reiterate the comment that April made when she was talking through the prior slide earlier. Again, that schedule is how these budget numbers were derived, but whatever is determined is going to be opened will be adjusted based on what what activities. April, you can say it better than I am right now.
What activities are allowable?
Allowable, and how to best maximize, right, the activities and what people want to do and the costs and revenues associated with each, right?
So for example, if the board chose to open, just the Centennial lap pool or Hinckley, and the new guidelines stated the exact same as phase 3, we take the risk that we would not have the public swim hours, but then we would program for all hours a day for each pool and have lap swim and swim lessons and private swim lessons, aqua aerobics. So would be the alternate if the phase 4 looked similar to phase 3. But we don't have that in the projections here. In the projections, it anticipates open swim times.
I think that one other note is that, or question, I just want to, the splash pad, this is just through August, right? This doesn't include September, which we typically keep the splash pad open in September, at least, for 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the weather, right? The revenue's not in here for September, I don't believe, or the expenses.
Correct.
But it would be very similar to phase 4, I would guess.
Hi, April, it's Cindy. I don't remember, did we have any feedback on the surveys regarding pool opening from the residents? I guess what I'm getting to is, like the camps, do people feel comfortable coming to the pools if we have a feel?
Margaret, I don't think we asked specifically about pools yet, did we?
We did not, from what I remember, but it's been a little while. There were a few comments, but I don't think it was overwhelming.
But that was quite some time ago.
And it wasn't a question, it was just feedback, right? They just.
Correct. They just chose to make a comment.
And are you hearing from other states that are opening how the pools are doing?
I've seen some lines at some water parks, but they're packed. I'm sure we've all seen a lot of the same ones on the news, right?
Well, I talked to a friend in Texas today, and their pools are open, and people are going to them. I just wondered if you're here. That was anecdotal, so.
April, have you or Ethan? Ethan might have some insight into this.
Ethan would probably have more. I've heard from a few states, like Arizona's open, and they've had, I think, people coming. But Ethan would he's been on all those aquatics calls, so he would probably be best to answer that one.
Hi, everybody. I can't get on the video, so you can't see my lovely face.
I took it off.
All the states are a little bit different, right? So we're kind of factoring in having that 50-person limit that the Restore Illinois plan is kind of putting us as our guideline. Some other states are using percentage of their capacity, and that seems to be going well. The private water parks are kind of a little bit doing their own thing, but I think the states that are opening, people want to swim, so they're getting some people at their facilities, but it's a different set of guidelines. We can use what we have, and kind of like what IDPH did to us a week after a phase started, they then gave us guidelines. So maybe we'll get a percentage of the capacity, which could make a difference, but we just don't know. So I think that's the biggest difference right now, is those other states have a little bit of a different way to structure stuff.
What is the capacity over there again?
At Centennial?
Yeah, at Centennial, sorry.
1,000. So I mean, it really all depends, and then we would have to really evaluate, if they did say you can use 25% of your capacity, well, now we're going to have to get into the math of, okay, if we're still doing 6 feet social distancing, we have to, which is what we did for the lap pool, then we would have to make sure that we could actually have 250 people. If we can't, what our actual maximum would be. So it all depends on what you know, what the guidelines will be, and we just, you know, unfortunately, we're just not sure yet.
Ethan, also, I mean, just to point out to the board, the lap pool capacity, do we have that broken down? I mean, the capacity we're suggesting would have to be 50 people, right, in phase 4?
Yeah.
But as we know it now, but the capacity typically in that lap pool, do we have those numbers with the deck space broken out? I'm not sure if we do.
I don't. I would have to work with
Terry.
just to make sure, Jennifer and Terry, just to make sure I had
Yeah.
the numbers correct. Excuse me.
Yeah, but this is Superintendent Wolf. We do not have a standard the number broken down for just the lap pool. The facility has its own capacity listed for the whole facility. Well,
That's what I thought. Yeah. Thanks, Terry.
I did take a minute to look at the survey that we did, and we didn't have anything on the pool specifically. Question 17 does ask how likely you are to return to Park District facilities this summer once reopened. We had 122 respondents, and 103 of them were in the very likely. We had 71 in the very likely, another 32 in likely. So the vast majority saying they're likely or very likely to show up, and a couple of the comments were pool-based about please open the pools and have diving available. But that's all.
Thank you, Terry.
This is Commissioner Harrington. Thanks, April, Ethan, Terry, and everyone who's been working on, I think, this type of outline to give some line of sight for the board in terms of making these decisions. From my perspective, you know, the splash pad's kind of an easy, right? Low maintenance, low expense, no lifeguard. I think we have one staff or two. Super easy open. Hinckley, just by nature of its size, kind of lends itself to a 50 and under, you know, like around that number, and kind of looking at expenses, and we're getting there, you know, like that one is easy for me to stomach. I think when you talk about such a large scale facility such as Centennial, and even though I've had lots of inquiries about if Centennial was going to open from lots of families that I know, when you start to think about the numbers and the restrictions, and then just the high overhead of staff training and staffing it for maybe 7-8 weeks, maybe if we could extend it out into August. I look at that number like the $148,000 for the lap pool only. And I don't know if these numbers were, you know, concrete, but what we had seen sent to us earlier was, you know, kind of a best estimate of how many patrons we could service with all the restrictions and guidelines for a lap pool. And it was around, you know, 750 people. And if you divide that by 148, that's a lot of money that the district is subsidizing. I think it's $138 per person for usage of the pool at Centennial per visit. So when you start to break it down in those numbers, and I know that we're talking about all of the taxpayers' dollars and wanting to open this amenity, if you're limiting that, you know, Centennial to 744 patrons at that figure, it starts to make me a little uncomfortable. So I just want to talk about that a little more, and I'd love to hear from some of the rest of the board as far as, you know, wanting to really fulfill that mission of recreation and opening this pool that we have sitting there, because I think there is demand, but just thinking through financially if it makes sense to subsidize each visit to the tune of about $138 per patron.
Can I jump in, Commissioner Harrington, just on I
Sure.
think that is that off of those numbers that I sent you today?
Yeah.
I'm sure it was hard. So, and Ethan put this together, so he can correct me if I'm wrong, but and maybe this is what you meant by when you said it, but the 744 is for lap swim, but then the other numbers, the 3,450, the 1,050, and the 100 come to 5,344 for 1 month. So that would be what we would be able to do if we just opened the lap pool and if we had open swim. So I don't know if that was.
Okay.
So
maybe there's some confusion about where we're saying Centennial lap pool. We're not anticipating, as long as we're able to open to the public in phase 4, right now we could use it for lap swim and for swim lessons. So,
And for open swim.
well, not.
Oh,
in-
you mean
not
now with the
currently.
guideline? Yeah, right.
Right, so maybe there's some confusion that the lap pool is only being open for lap swim times. We
Because it's
Are
called
you
the
saying for
lap.
that $148,000 negative number we're looking at, that would be on a best case scenario at capacity servicing 5,200 residents?
For
Or
one
visits, I should say visits.
But that was 1 month's worth, right, Gail?
1
Yeah,
month.
so it's 5,300. And again, you know,
three.
understandably, we sent this out very late this afternoon. So it was 5,344 for the month of July. So you could technically double that for the lap pool. And that's so it'd be, you know, 10,600 something or 10,700. I think that's a great point that Superintendent Armour made, that, you know, it's called the lap pool, right? But we have it programmed for phase 4, again, as long as we're able to, for lap swim. Maybe you could go back to that slide, Sandra, but it's lap swim, open swim. And I don't, here we go. So if you look to the, obviously the left, lap swim, swim lessons. I don't know if we have open swim list. Oh yeah, open swim. So those are the three things.
The lap pool could be used for all of those purposes on the left. If we were to open.
I just wanted to clarify that. Yes.
Open the leisure pool, that would only be for, you know, open swim. And that's in the full plan. That's in the budget projections.
And then, go ahead. Another thing that I just wanted to mention was that if you notice, we have the, and that's a big part of that leisure pool, is that we're not suggesting open the slides. Well, right now they're not allowed, but the slides or the wading pool, because of all the touch points and the social distancing. And so that's another consideration, you know, for the board to look at when you're thinking about the whole facility of Centennial. Now
Right,
that's
so
unless something changes. Yeah, right.
Right. I just want to make sure I understand this. So when we're talking about the estimates based upon lap pool, it's programming it for lap swim, swim lessons, open swim, and we're expecting 10,000 potential visits from July and August, and where the district would be subsidizing that to the tune of about $150,000. Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I kind of understand the numbers,
I know.
what we're kind of contemplating.
Lots of numbers, so.
Yeah.
That's correct. And that's assuming we could have enough staff. Like, normally we go to reduced hours once the high schoolers go back to school, but that's, you know,
right.
Yeah,
who knows who will be home to be able to, staff the pool, maybe extended, maybe. But that's maybe. Like expecting full capacity and everyone utilizing it to the maximum, right?
Right.
Okay.
And it couldn't open before July then, or?
We, trust me, I'm pushing, right? But, you know, we're thinking that July is a very good estimate, and that's pushing with getting the water in. But if it's just the lap pool, you know, the water's going to fill a little quicker, and then Ethan has to get his staff trained. So, you know, if we could open it earlier, we would definitely open it earlier, you know, if that was a possibility. If you were talking the whole facility, you could not get that open earlier than, you know, the first week of July.
So we're looking at more like $15 per patron loss.
I'd have to do the math, or have Sandra do the math.
It's 10,000.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So about $15, yeah, a resident. Our user. Is that what you're saying?
I had a couple questions, please. I was curious what the capacity is for Hinckley. You mentioned 1,000 for Centennial. My first question would be, what's the capacity for Hinckley?
Terry, do you have that number? Or Ethan?
Terry's gonna have to defer to Ethan on that one.
And while we're looking at that, the other question, did we take into account in these numbers, the estimates? Commissioner Harrington was pointing out the number, but did we take a look at a percentage of days, to account for weather not being ideal and that kind of thing in the projections, or is this based on total calendar days during that time? I was curious about that.
Ethan, you want to talk about that one?
I'm looking for the pool capacity.
So I did so I was going to defer to Terry on the pool capacity. I knew Centennials because I see it so many more times. But I did it, July is usually one of our best months, so I just did it as every day. Now, granted, if there are days where we don't open, then we don't have any incurred staff costs too. So there is a little bit of a give and take. But yeah, I did plan it as if we were going to be, running all 31 days of July.
That's what I thought. I think we did this as, best or worst case scenario. So best case scenario.
The best worst case scenario.
Whichever way you want to look at it.
Conservative estimates. These are estimates. They're conservative estimates.
Best case scenario for revenue and worst case scenario for expenses.
And I happened to find the existing Hinkley Bather load is 312 people.
Okay. That helps just picture size-wise. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure that I understand, because in all the confusion, open swim is, you said, was not part of the current guidance, right? Or
In
did you
phase
say
3, it's correct. Open swim is
Correct.
not.
Do we anticipate, or dare we anticipate anything at this point that the guidance will change for phase 4, or that it will change sometime between now and when phase 4 goes live?
We really have no idea.
But the projections assume that phase 4 would allow for open swim, right?
Correct. The projections do.
Yeah. But I think that we're, I shouldn't speak, and the staff can chime in, but we're pretty confident if they don't in both Centennial lap pool, I'm calling it the lap pool because that's what we call it, in Centennial lap pool and at Hinkley, we could program it regardless. It would be a different look, and we did not do the budget for that, but swim lessons, I believe, will be at a premium. But again, we're just estimating at this point.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I was going to get to that too. But yes, so you have alternative programming, et cetera, but you had to pick something to plug in here for
the budget.
For the budget, right? I got it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
This is Commissioner Grau again. Do we have more updated information about what our neighboring districts are considering or have decided?
I sent that late this afternoon because we update that. The majority, well, I shouldn't say the neighboring.
I missed
a
that.
lot of our, what?
I missed that. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I was sending you a lot of information as we were getting questions from the board. The majority of Illinois, the people that we know about are not opening. However, our neighbors, Des Plaines is talking about opening their at least one neighborhood pool. I'm looking for that information. Ethan, you want that? Glenview.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
sorry. Des Plaines has closed Mystic Waters a while ago, but they're still anticipating opening Chippewa, and I believe, Chippewa for
Iroquois.
sure, and Iroquois. But they're planning on trying to do that by phase 4 at the end of June because they didn't have a chance to train staff yet. So they're doing the next 2 weeks of training staff. Arlington Heights, they're discussing pool operations tonight, just like us at their board meeting. Glenview is, their indoor is closed, and their outdoor, they're only going to open one of their outdoor pools in Flick, and they're anticipating July. And I think Skokie is still in a wait and see mode. Niles has closed. But the spreadsheet that I sent out, I think we had just in the ones that I know of in Illinois, almost 50, I think, have completely closed.
Do we have anybody listening in at Arlington Heights?
Was that?
He used to work there.
Do we have anybody listening in at Arlington Heights meeting? And they can.
I've been my friend who runs the aquatics over there. We've been, she's been texting, and they haven't even started discussing pools yet in their board meeting because they knew that we both knew this is a big night for us. So
maybe we could have a joint conversation.
They're on Zoom, so they're not on our level of go-to, but I know that they're Arlington Heights. I grew up here, and I live here, so it's just like Park Ridge, a very passionate swimming community. So, obviously, if they, like Park Ridge, if it makes sense, they want to open. But it's all, people are putting paper to pencil. So we're doing our best job of trying to get you guys as best information as we can. But a lot of places made the decision early May too, without even getting any updated guidelines on stuff. They just decided to, cancel everything. And, a lot of them are seasonal operations, so they don't have an indoor pool to staff either.
Well, and I think looking at some of the neighboring communities and across the state and seeing the size of pools that are being closed, it's very similar to a Centennial, like when you have such big facilities that depend on, a certain number of patron visits to maximize. And then when you're limited to 50, or less, depending on where you are, it's really hard to operate these larger scale facilities with all the overhead and the safety requirements of staff and training in a shortened time period. And with no guidance. So again, for me, it makes a lot of sense for Hinckley and the splash pad. I'm really torn on Centennial, given all the unknowns and the high overhead.
Yeah, I'll let the rest of the commissioners speak, and then I'll kind of give my opinion again. But any other commissioner?
Can you go over how many staff we hire for Centennial, or we would hire for Centennial?
Yes, we provided those. Let's see. Yes, the typical that we hire, I'm looking at the numbers to make sure.
We have the slide up here, typically 170, phase 4, 115, but that would include the entire facility. So Ethan, what would it be just for Centennial, to staff the laugh pool only?
We would probably be thinking, I don't know, like 30 or 35 guards is probably a decent estimate. Just so we would have, with everyone having stuff going on or whatnot, like that would give us probably a good base of people to have over there, because we would need 1, 2, 3 guards up. One guard staff would always have to be social distancing person to make sure everyone's adhering to guidelines. So we would probably have 6 on shift at a time.
a manager along with a cashier. So I would say 35 would probably be a good start. Hinckley is a little bit less. That would probably be about 16 staff, you know, and a couple of managers needed over there. And the splash pad is really, you know, we could staff that with a cashier. We can staff that with myself. So that one's, we have a little bit more flexibility with that one too, from a staffing standpoint.
I don't know if this was Commissioner Grau's point. I guess she could make that if she wants, but it does bring up a point to me that those guard jobs, the 30 some odd guard jobs at Centennial are our kids in the neighborhoods and the town, and they're looking for summer work, and you know, that's kind of pulled out from under them. And I'm not necessarily saying that we should spend 150 grand to accommodate, or lose 150 grand to accommodate those jobs, but I do think that it's something to consider when you're weighing these options, that we all have to consider the fact that we are also providing a service for young people in our community by having the pools open and guards, you know, taking jobs and learning how to perform as adults in society. So something to think about.
It's Commissioner Leach, if I can join in. I actually want to echo and go back to, and I followed the same line of logic that Commissioner Harrington has suggested, but especially with the Centennial Pool. As from last meeting, I still have my reservations relative to the financial outlook on all this. I like the idea, and if we approach it maybe with a pared down approach, splash pads, as she said, no brainer. Totally agree from the last meeting, and Dirk kind of said the same thing, but we're waiting on the governor and the plan. I think Hinckley would give us a nice option, much lower staff. I'm sure there's a financial impact of those changes. I just am pessimistic that we are not going to get past some of the challenges of enforcing or keeping group gatherings limited, the social distancing, the sanitation issues, just the other preventive maintenance aspects of keeping people safe from the virus. So in that regard, I just think it's smarter and maybe wiser, as Gail, I think, said. There's several districts around us that have already pulled the plug on these. And I think if we can offer a couple options and then just go ahead and make the call on Centennial Pool, that'd be my recommendation. Thank you.
I had a couple other questions. I think I asked Sandra, and I think this is right. Last year off of Centennial Pool, we netted $46,000 in revenue.
That was for all outdoor pools.
It was for all outdoor pools. Okay. And how much of our rec fund, how much money did we make off our recreation funds all last year, like over our expenses? It was close to $500,000.
I think that's right. You have the email.
I think you said 490,000. So, you know, nobody wants to operate anything at a loss, but we were very happy to make money during years that we were able to. And, you know, another service we're providing is a place for people to take their children. There's no vacations, no festivals, no playgrounds, limited or costly childcare, and online summer school this summer. There's very little for our kids to do this summer. And so it's not just a financial commitment, it's a commitment to our citizens who have been paying for the pool with their taxes and also subsidizing a lot of what the Park District does with their fees for many years. So this is not a year that they're going to subsidize us or even make us whole. But I feel like it's our district as a public, our job as a public entity to provide those services if we can.
Certainly hear what you're saying, Commissioner Grau. I would love to hear from a staff perspective, because I don't think any of us have a crystal ball. You know, that we've gone through the past 3 months without having any revenue coming in really, and we've had to furlough our staff, and we've had significant overhead as a result of you know, paying for that furlough and continuing to provide you know, facility upkeep and having our full-time staff employed during this time. Such difficult, unprecedented times, I think, that none of us can imagine. I hear what you're saying about, you know, of the people, for the people, in good times and bad, right? However, I guess I have some concern as well about what the future holds for the district. And if we enter a period of second wave COVID, for instance, and we're shut down again in the fall, in the winter, in the spring, you know, to what financial standing? And I think that gets to some of the later financial planning that Superintendent DeAngelis has done when we look at, you know, worst case scenario planning as a whole for our district and not just the pool. Do we as commissioners have to really think through the financial viability of our district? And if we are entering a period of time with lots of unknown and perhaps closing again and not having any revenue come in, what that looks like, and balancing that against, you know, what we're able to offer by way of a pool. It is a happy medium being able to offer Hinckley and the splash pad in the meantime.
Maybe we'll take, if there's any other commissioners that want to comment at this time, and then this is just a suggestion, and then maybe we can go through some of those higher view financials and then come back. Does that sound like and then we can, because I think that some of the staff comments will come with the financials, and then, you know, we're happy to give our opinion. Does that sound like a plan?
That works for me. I think that would probably be a good way to go through this. I'm having a little trouble calling up my agenda to see where we're supposed to be at, but yes, that would be, it would probably be a good time to look at the financials, and then then I would suggest that we come back to, you know, the motion and as we discussed.
And Sandra, I don't think you, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm sorry, I can't, I lost my view of who's speaking. So are you seeing me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Then I'll just move on to the next portion of the presentation then, if that's okay. We agreed?
Yeah, we're going to talk through the financials. I think we're going to, and then go back.
Come back. Yeah.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about, you know, the aquatics from the staff perspective. And then we'll do capital after the vote is what I think it makes most sense.
Got it. So this slide has not changed from the last time we met. It's just really an explanation of how all of the budgets were incorporated into the scenario plans. Right spot. Okay, so I've added this slide because I just wanted to remind everyone that these scenario projections are a framework for evaluating our financial position, and they're going to continue to evolve as new information is available and operating plans are implemented and adjusted based on participation and you know, what we're allowed to do. Again, we're going to continually make adjustments. We'll put our actual experience and how that projects forward So when we meet next week, we'll have these scenario plans updated with actual information for May, and we'll make any adjustments based on what the board determines tonight. An example of a change that is already being incorporated. We've learned over the last couple of weeks that based on the CARES Act, we expect to be eligible for a 50% reimbursement of our unemployment expense, and that was new information that we weren't aware of. So we'll be adjusting those estimates going forward. And all of this is going to, continually be changing. So I also wanted to point out that we've demonstrated that we have the ability to make adjustments throughout April and May, as we've done with the very difficult staffing decisions. And this chart here shows a budget comparison of what we had budgeted for salaries, wages, benefits, and program instructors, and what the actual experience was that demonstrates those adjustments, which we will continue to do going forward as things evolve. And this just shows the data that makes up that bar graph, and on a percentage basis, when you total the budget for April and May versus our actual expenses for April and May, the total amongst these categories was 40% below budget. So again, we'll continue to make adjustments as necessary as we move forward through what's going on. And again, this staffing chart that we moved forward to before kind of shows you what the assumptions assume, but these would adjust again as if we were to move forward with the pools on a more limited than what we had included in the initial scenario projection. So again, we've looked through these financial numbers. This hasn't changed since our last meeting. It was just by way of explaining how we incorporated the budget assumptions into the projection scenarios. And this slide just details what the major assumptions were. And this hasn't changed either. This chart will be updated for next week's meeting, but it doesn't have any new information for today's presentation. But again, it gives you the picture of what we're looking at. And this slide wasn't changed from our last meeting either. This is the summary that shows what, if we look at the total net deficit projected in the moderate case, by including all of the assumptions we made, was a net deficit of 2.1 million, which translates into approximately a fund balance of approximately 3 months of expenditures, and that the stress case was a net deficit of 3.7 million with approximately 1.9 months of expenditures. And then we compare that to what we had originally budgeted, and remind us what our fund balance policy is as far as how many months worth of operating expenditures we want to have in our fund balance. So I've added this to kind of better make sure it's clear what the impact of not opening the pools would be. So for the months of June through August, the original 2020 budget was projecting a surplus of approximately $86,000 for all of the outdoor pools. And as we saw in the slide that April went through, opening all of the pools with the all of the amenities is what we had used in the initial scenario planning. So if we didn't open any of the pools, that would reduce the projection scenario loss by approximately $270,000. So the 3 months of fund balance would bump up to 3.2 months, and that net deficit that we looked at in the prior slide of 2.1 million would go down to 1.8 million. And it's the same effect on this stress case. We didn't change any other assumptions there. It just shows what the impact of that would be. And then if we chose to offer limited pool service, it would reduce the projection scenario by lesser amounts. So any of those other options, if it was just Hinckley and the splash pad, for example, I think the net of that would be about a loss of 23,000. So that would instead of 270,000, you know, I guess this is the time to ask if anyone has questions about that. Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody understood that.
I just wanted to remind everyone again, I know because there's so many options, that if Hinckley and the spray pad were the two options that the board were to choose to open, that we would shift some of the revenues for swim lessons and shift those over to Hinckley, because right now we do have only the open swim anticipated. So we try and program over there as well, which is not shown in the projections or the numbers you saw just for Hinckley as a standalone.
So April, you've got it programmed from noon to 7, pretty much, right? And so we
Just
would
for
talk
open swim.
And we would talk about expanding some of those opportunities you talked about, and aqua aerobics and swim lessons in the early morning, and even look at, depending on what the, you know, they open up for, if they open up anything more for phase 4, you know, maybe we could do small group rentals if they open that up. Yeah, so that would be another option.
Right. Once we see what the guidelines allow, that we, you know, go full speed ahead with as many hours open as possible.
But even that notwithstanding, you would move some of the things that are clearly going to be allowed from Centennial over to Hinckley in that scenario, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
if open swim
that
is not allowed,
150 or that 40-some thousand would be maybe a little bit less. That number, I forget what the number is, and we don't have to go back and look it up, but
Yeah,
that the revenue loss would be, or the expense would be less there.
potentially.
we would hope so. Yeah. And just to make it clear that everybody understands, when we say, you know, the splash pad, and I'm glad that, I mean, I feel like we're getting somewhere with that seems like everybody, hopefully that has spoken at least, is in agreement that that would be a good thing to open if we're allowed. There's no indication one way or another on phase 4 that we're going to be allowed to open it, right? But even if that was, yeah, I think we can open that one, you know, pretty quickly. Terry will tell me if I'm wrong, and Ethan, but I think, do you want us to, if there's no other commissioners' comments at this point, would you like to, you know, I mean, we want to hear from staff on the pools a little bit, or does that sound like a good time for that?
Sure.
Sure. I think that's probably a perfect time, and then we can go back.
I'm sorry, what, President Coyne? Go back.
Then we can go back to the probably back to the motion at that point. I'm having a little bit of network connectivity, so I'm going to shut off my camera here.
Okay.
Hopefully that'll improve things. But I'm still here.
Anybody else? April and Ethan, maybe you could turn on your camera so we can get the staff perspective. But I mean, I'll start us out. This is clearly a very tough decision. Commissioner Harrington said, we don't have a crystal ball, and it's very true, right? This is, we're guessing at a lot of things that we don't have the answers to right now for a very limited season. And so I would say the negatives of opening a Centennial, to me, a Hinckley and the splash pad, I would recommend for sure, because we could start getting Hinckley ready and start using it for things in phase 3 if we were able to get it open, a little earlier. And and conversely, we could probably do that with Centennial as well. But so I think that the hard things are the unknowns in terms of what, really are our customers going to want now versus, a month or so ago. Because there's a lot of changing factors, right? They could have made other arrangements. They could not feel comfortable. They could feel more comfortable. We're just not going to know that. But so that's tough. It's a challenge, right? It's going to be a challenge. To the bigger the facility, the more challenging. We're up for the challenge. If we decide to open the lap pool at Centennial, I think that the most important thing that we have to look at is it's going to provide the most opportunities for swimming in this challenging environment that we feel is safe, right? I mean, the safest that we can do is doing the lap pool at Centennial, Hinckley, doing the Hinckley pool or opening the Hinckley pool and the splash pad. It will, under our circumstances, we'll get the most opportunities that we feel would be the best thing to do. I think the other thing, that's why it makes it so hard, because pools typically are a community, outdoor pools are typically a community service in communities. We are so fortunate that the passion in this community enables us to, make a little money on good years to put back into the pools. So we know that we have a very passionate pool community, and that's why we're still talking about this. And we didn't make the decision, before we were given some guidance, on the pools. So in that regard, the community service part, you have to look at, as I believe Commissioner Harrington said, how does that weigh out versus the cost? And then the unknowns in a budget, that we really just don't know what's going to happen the rest of the year. The good news is that it seems that the economy is coming back a little quicker, but that's, we're really early on in the recovery. We're not even in the recovery stage of COVID, and I'm not a doctor, obviously. So, and the chance that it could come back, yeah, nobody knows that. So I think, in my perspective, it's a very tough decision. I could go either way, and the financials are tough, tough to swallow. There's no question. I do believe that, there's things that you're going to see, with the unemployment, cut that we're going to be able to make. Hopefully that we're going to get 50% of that. That's not factored in right now. There's other items that we will be cutting as a staff. We went through this budget once, and there's other items that we can cut out. And when the programs don't go, then we don't pay the instructor costs, right? So those things I think are going to balance out the tax revenue that we're going to get. We hope it's higher than what we projected in both of these cases. So those are outliers, but certainly we just don't know, and I can't I can't predict that. When you look at it as a customer service or a community service type offering, you look at our balances, and as I've said to, the commissioners I've had conversations with, and I think at the last meeting, is that we are fortunate as a park district that our community supports us in the manner that we have strong fund balances, that we're even having this conversation. And, we've been able to transfer, to capital and to really do a lot of great things for the community with that in the past years. And so it's a matter of philosophy somewhat as well, I guess. What is that fund balance for in the end? Is it for a time like this that, I've never seen, since 2008, and this is probably worse, right, in my career. And then the other thing I can tell you is that, as you saw in the one scenario that Superintendent DeAngelis pointed out, is that we're able to adjust, and that we are watching this, and the board will see it every month, the updates to, what the effects of the reality is. All we can do is estimate right now, but we can look at the reality more closely, and we will continue to make adjustments as that reality changes for us. So I guess, I would just say that at the minimum, I would hope that we could, leave there tonight. My recommendation would be to open Hinckley, to, if we are able, open the splash pad, open the indoor pool, to get our very passionate lap swimmers back into the pool. And, Centennial, I can go either way, but I'd love to open it, right? I'd love to open the lap pool. If that's what the board decides. The other one thing I wanted to point out about Hinckley versus outdoor at Centennial are, our lap swimmers will have an opportunity if we open the indoor pool for lap swim. Hinckley is not ideal for lap swimming. We don't even have lap lanes in that pool. So, and our lap swimmers understandably like to go outside in the summer. So that will certainly minimize that activity for them. So that's my probably way too long of a explanation about how I feel about the pools. Any other staff want to jump in?
I'll say, so I lost power, so I don't have any camera access, so I'm not trying to ignore anybody here.
That's
Ethan.
That's Ethan.
Sorry, it's Ethan. Sorry. I mean, we're gonna do whatever plan gets put in place, right? Like we will make adjustments and roll with whatever we need to. If it's Hinckley and the splash pad, great. I think whatever we can try and provide to the community, I think is gonna be beneficial. Like people want some type of little bit of normalcy for the summer, and the outdoor pool kind of gives people that. And whatever we can try and provide, I think is going to be a huge service to the community. And I know the financials are, like Gail was saying, tough to swallow, but Hinckley is a little bit more manageable with that. And like April was saying, we can program it even more. Like we just have the real basic 12 to 7. If we can do open swim there, great. If not, we can reevaluate, do more lessons, private lessons, aqua fitness, and we can just program it from the time it opens until the time it closes. But myself will make whatever adjustments and hit the ground running whenever we get a plan in place.
I think between Gail and Ethan, they covered everything that I would have said as well. Hinckley might be a little easier for buildings and grounds to get up and running as well, compared to a more expensive facility. So whatever the board decides, we can and will support.
I have another question, if you'll allow me, unless Superintendent DeAngelis, you want to provide your perspective?
I was just going to say that, from a financial perspective, none of this looks great. But, I would definitely agree that whatever the board determines, we'll definitely support. I just, wanted to add, similar to Gail's comments, I've felt, from the beginning, when the pandemic started, that it's really, really hard to figure out what the right thing is to do, because this is all so different than what anyone's ever experienced. So again, we've tried to put these projections forward. My first concern is what has to happen before we really get into trouble. And that's what I, tried to, kind of layout. We seem, my gut is that we'll end up somewhere between the stress and the moderate, or the moderate, even May is looking like it's going to be maybe a couple $100,000 better than what we have projected. So, and we have some other adjustments. So again, it's another thing I've been saying throughout is it's a whole lot of I don't know, but we all are doing the best we can. And again, as Gail had mentioned, we do have a strong fund balance. We don't want to have none when this is over, but that I think we have a good methodology of monitoring how we're doing. And RecStaff has such great ideas, and people, are already demonstrating that they want to be back doing things outdoors. So that's my perspective.
I think another thing to add to thank you, Sandra, to your financial perspective is that just as a reminder that our fund balance policy is 2 to 4 months. And I think everybody knows that of expenses, but you can see in the stress case, well, this is without the pools, but the stress case with the pools, I think it was at 1.9 months. So we're right there at this moment, right, in our projections.
Right. Well, and one of the curious things as I've been working through this over and over again is as our expenses are being reduced during, all of these events and what we're projecting, because as we know, if programs aren't running, we're not having those program expenses. It's that kind of shrinks the number that we're using in the formula. So it kind of, it tends to balance out, but the next challenge is, this is challenging, and then we're gonna have to start thinking about what the budget for 21 looks like. But that's a topic for another meeting. Yeah.
Superintendent Wolf, do you have anything to add?
No, I think everything's been iterated very well, and we're ready to help open up and operate any facility that we need to do. So,
thank you. President Coyne, are you still with us?
Much of Park Ridge has lost power, so I'm here on phone. Yeah, I'm on the phone, but I don't have anything else because I dialed in the phone. So, Commissioner Harrington, I don't know who else is still on.
Gail, this is Scott. You need to check. We got to make sure we have a quorum then.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Mary Ann, can you take a quick gauge?
Then I might suggest that we take the roll call really quick. Yes, I suggest that we take the roll.
Let's give a couple minutes and see if we can get everybody to come back on. Come on.
We have a quorum if Harmony's on, and there's John.
Come
All right,
on,
I'm gonna go ahead.
Commissioner Harrington's here.
You look good.
Scott, would it be wise for me to do a roll call right now to make sure?
Yeah, why don't you check to make it looks like everybody's back though.
Yeah, it does. But
It's fine to double check though.
Wouldn't hurt.
All right, Commissioner Grau?
I'm here.
Commissioner Harrington?
Here.
Commissioner Leduc?
Here.
Commissioner Leach?
Here.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Tunnell?
Here.
Commissioner Coyne?
okay, so it sounds like everybody's here.
Commissioner Coyne, can you hear us?
I am back. I was lost,
Yes,
but I guess I'm back.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So here.
Since the pools are fresh on our minds, should we talk? You want to talk have the commissioners make their comments on any other comments on pools, President Coyne?
Yes, I think that that's where we need to focus. Not for reasons, not the least of which is that we may all be disconnected here in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah,
for all we know.
yeah, for sure,
So,
for sure.
that's the pressing issue before us, and I would suggest that we move right into the discussion about the pools, and then perhaps craft a motion to accept, to decide what we're going to do about the pool specifically, and then we can come back to the motion if we're going to do all the rest, if we have time, or we can defer that till next week, I believe.
Yes, correct.
So that's how I think that that's how it would go. I don't know if I need to have consensus opinion on that, or, but that makes the most amount of sense to me. So why don't we just, unless there's objection, let's just dive into that, the pool discussion right now. But I don't know if we should have to put out a motion and then have discussion, or if we should just talk and then decide how we're going to make the motion. That part's Robert's rules. I'm not really that sure.
This is Scott. And again, it's really up to you how you want to do it and how you typically do it. It might be good in this instance to talk about what you want to do first, so you're not amending motions.
Right.
Right. Okay, so then let's do.
Let's talk about the pools. And any commissioners want to give comment, right? Is that what?
Yeah, I'm certainly hoping that that's exactly what they're going to do right at this point, is give lots and lots of comment. Concise, but.
Right.
Commissioner Harrington with a question. We don't know what phase 4 safety pool guidance is from IDPH, right? So this discussion of moving to, 50 plus at the pool, open swim, et cetera, we haven't received any guidance on that, right?
Correct. We've just received guidance of the group size in general for phase 4, but not anything on the pool specifically for phase 4. Correct.
But we'd need to start training staff if we went forward with the Centennial, Hinckley, splash pad trifecta. When would we have to start training staff to make that decision? Would that be next week in order to be ready for a July 1? Hiring staff, all of that would have to take place, that investment, before we kind of knew what our world looked like.
Yeah, I think, and Ethan, jump in, but maybe like the 22nd. I mean, you said you could do it in a week if you had to, but.
Yeah, I mean, I could push it. The nice thing is that we did recertify about 50 staff in January, so they do have valid certifications. So they would just need to do some PDERMA yearly training, sexual harassment training, and then pretty much I would want to run them through a little bit of a refresher, since nobody's really lifeguarded since March. So I think that I could push it to week, leading up to possibly a phase 4 opening would probably be what I would think would be enough time. It would definitely be some long days, but it's nothing that hasn't been done before. As far as staff that aren't certified, and we would do recertifications, we can do some of the material virtually. There's a great online coursework, but it would still involve getting them in the water for 2-3 hours to get them recertified. As far as new staff, it would really be, that would be also determined on how many returning staff are still planning on coming back. And I'm still gathering kind of that information. So I would say about a week. I will definitely take more time if you give it to me, but I would think a week would probably be good.
And I think, and Terry's going to speak next, but I think that, that's because we're lucky, because we have this indoor pool and we've got a lot of these people certified and they've had, training already. But Terry, you want to?
Yeah, this is Superintendent Wolf. from my perspective, as far as getting the pools ready, we really need to get started on this probably tomorrow and start working towards it. Just because we've got a lot of work to do, and we're doing a lot of work at many facilities right now where we're kind of reinventing our businesses, and they're all planning on reopening at the same time. So that's we really need to get focused on this right away if we're going to be opening these pools. So.
Right, so the training would start a little later, could start a little later, and that would save some expense if we heard something different. But the pools, we would be taking the expense of filling the pools. And again, we know at least we can open them for, you know, what's designated in phase 3. We might be having a whole different conversation if there was no ability to do anything in phase 3.
Okay, what are other commissioner questions, comments? This is the time.
Commissioner Leduc here, and yeah, I mean, it really hurts to think about not opening up Centennial, but I'm kind of on board with the splash pad and Hinckley thumbs up plan, and for reasons already stated by other people, not doing Centennial this year.
Anybody else?
This is Commissioner Tunnell. I concur with that statement as well. I've lost video though. I'm sorry.
That's okay. All right. So
Yeah, that's okay for all of us, really, John.
So we have Commissioner Leach, Commissioner Leduc, and Commissioner Tunnell so far that have spoken to Hinckley and the splash pad. I'm assuming you guys are all okay with the indoor pool as well, because that's something we want to open Monday. If we don't vote on the fitness center, we need to know that as well. So
I am okay with the indoor pool, and I think it's good that then it's not as, granted for the lap swimmers, it's not as optimal, but I think it at least says, okay, we're still doing something for you.
sure, yeah, sure.
I'm in agreement completely with that. I think the lap pool needs to open. It's almost separate from this in some ways, but
Yes,
the
it
overlap,
is.
it's really part of the fitness center. And well, I suppose we can vote on the fitness center if we want, but I think it's good to at least have a consensus at this point that that's where we're headed, and we can craft out motions as we go forward. But so let's go back just in case and to see if there's anybody that wants to advocate for opening Centennial, Hinckley, and the splash pad, just to see where we're at. I think that we have a majority that would vote certainly for at least that, the Hinckley and splash pad, but I don't know if we have the other, and I certainly want to hear all points of view here.
Correct. If there's no other comment, is everybody still on, hopefully?
That's what I was just wondering, because I thought someone would speak up.
It's awfully quiet.
There's
Rob's
Commissioner
on.
Lee, looking good.
We have Commissioner Tunnell and Leduc on, correct? That's 4. Commissioner Harrington, are you still on?
I am, yep.
Commissioner Grau?
Yep, I kind of wondered. I thought she might drop off.
Yeah, I'm here. You can look down the side and see who's on.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
sometimes there's a delay on that too, though.
So maybe what we need to do is take the motion and make a motion on the pool. And then if everybody's still on and we could just craft the motion for the pool so we get that decided before, and if we lose everybody and go back and, you know, it's the fitness center and the activity center And if you're not comfortable voting on it now, that's fine, but maybe we could take a poll on those, kind of take them separately.
Yes, and then I would go so far as to say that we can probably take a vote on the pools. If someone can wordsmith out a motion that includes the indoor lap pool, the Hinckley pool, and the splash pad, I don't see any reason why we couldn't vote on that motion, because I feel like that's gonna that's sort of
Right,
where we're
it
at.
sounds like that's, yeah.
Right.
So could we just, and I'm looking, Mary Ann or Scott, can we just take the suggested motion and put in, instead of, or a portion of, put in and list out for Hinckley Pool, Centennial Indoor Pool, the splash pad, and, did I say Hinckley? Hinckley,
Yeah.
the indoor pool, and the splash pad.
Yes. Scott,
Okay.
yeah, I would recommend that's how you do it. Just take it right off the suggested motion and make that change. I agree with you, Gail.
Okay. Okay. So did somebody that wants to make that motion understand that just take the wording out or a portion of and add in those 3 facilities that we discussed and seem to be agreed upon, and we'll get the pools done?
Did Commissioner Harrington understand that?
I'm here and I understand, but I
Great.
didn't craft anything. So if someone else has something,
That's
I'm not
kind of
looking
my
at
to you.
my,
I figured.
all of my screens are down. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. No, that's okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, let me see if I can bring something up here. Well, I can't, I want someone else to make the motion, frankly.
Is there anybody that has the suggested motion? Or am I allowed to read it? Probably not.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Yeah, you could read it and somebody could say so moved if that's what
Okay.
they do.
You want me to do that, or is somebody going to pull it up and
If
find
you can
it?
do that, that's great, because
Gail,
I'm
I
having
could
some
do it.
trouble.
I could do it,
Mary
Gail,
Ann,
if
why
you
don't
want.
you do it? I would rather you do it. Yeah, that would be good.
All right, so there's a motion. I move to approve the motion would read, I move to approve the district's COVID-19 program. Are we approving the program facility too? Phase 4? Gail?
Just, yes, I would just say program and facility opening plan as presented for phase 4, and then list the facility.
Okay.
Why don't I just do it?
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
I move to approve the district's COVID-19 program and facility opening plan as presented for phase 4 for the Hinckley Pool, Prospect Park Splash Pad, and Centennial Indoor Pool, with the understanding that the plan could change based on the governor's orders, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or the Illinois Department of Public Health direction. This action will be formally ratified in an actual board meeting with physical presence at a later date. And then a commissioner needs to just say so moved.
This is Commissioner Leduc, so moved.
And then we
Then
have
can I
to
have a
call the roll.
second, please? Can I have a second to
Harrington,
the so
second.
moved? Thank
Commissioner
you.
Harrington.
Any further discussion? Then I guess I call the question, right?
Sure. Hold on. Commissioner Leduc? Commissioner
Yes.
Leduc? Commissioner
Yes.
Leach?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Tunnel?
Yes.
Commissioner Grau?
No.
Commissioner Harrington?
Yes.
Commissioner Coyne?
Aye.
Thank you very much. So I guess I'll just bring up the fitness center. That would, and if Superintendent Armour wants to chime in, that might be helpful to hear if there is enough consensus without concern with that plan for phase 4. And we can throw in the activity center. And that would take care, I mean, we don't have to vote on the general programs at this point because those are just going to be adjusted as, you know, they've already been advertised for June and July, at least that phase, part of phase 4. So I guess I would just suggest if we can do it with people being comfortable, and if there's just hesitation, that we wait until next week.
I think that's fair. So I'm not, I mean, Superintendent Armour is more than welcome to speak, but I thought she did an excellent job at the beginning of it, and I'm wondering if we can probably get commissioner comments now based on what was already presented, unless there's.
Oh, right, yeah. I was just saying that if she had an opinion on, you know, if it would help to get the fitness center now, but I'm sure she'd say yes, not speaking for her, but yeah.
Right, but I mean, I think we can certainly, I would prefer that we have a, yes, he's nodding. So, it certainly wasn't trying to cut you off, the superintendent, but I think that we should have a discussion amongst the commissioners about whether or not this is something we want to talk about right now or not. So I'll open that up to whoever wants to chime in. Well, this is completely not helpful because if I don't hear you, I don't know whether or not you want to postpone it till next week or whether you want to talk about it now.
Or we could just call the question on each one. That's another option.
All right, well, I'm not hearing anybody, and I'm not sure if that's because they don't have anything to say or again, because of weird internet connections and whatnot.
If you are on the line, please, if you have video, show up on the video, please.
They're here.
Right. So they're here. They're just not talking to me. That's okay. I feel a little snubbed, but that's all right. So
what do you want to know, Matt?
I just want to know, you know, how you feel about the phase 4 plans for Centennial Fitness and Centennial Activity Center as presented. If you're willing to vote on it now, if you want to vote on it now, or if you want to defer to talk about it next week.
I think John Tunnell was trying to say something. Are you muted, John Tunnell?
John had sent a chat that his sound is not working.
Oh, geez. I mean, there's really nothing to say about the activity center, right?
Not really.
So that's kind of moot. It's
right.
Whether we open the fitness center or not.
Yes.
Great. But I'm going to suggest that those decisions, okay, so Gail, just for clarity, I mean, obviously it'd be beneficial to know these things now, but the things that you really had to know today, you know about.
It was
now,
a pools.
Right?
Yes,
right.
for sure.
So I'm going to suggest that that we defer the vote on the rest of it till next week's meeting.
Okay.
Simple reason that, I mean, I'm willing to have a discussion on it, but with people dropping in and out, I'm sure people have opinions on here that they're just not able to make because they can't, because of the connectivity.
Okay.
So I might suggest that we sort of table that, I guess, until next week, and
That's
then we
fine.
move on to the last part of the discussion, if need be, about the capital account, because it's already 9:33. I'm trying to beat my, I'm trying to cut my meeting time.
Yes,
I got kicked off the audio.
Are you back on? Obviously.
Yeah, I had it dialed back in. It just kicked me off.
Okay. So, in terms of the capital, we can also, from a staff perspective, there's no need to discuss this tonight because there's nothing, you know, that we would be starting on I think that this was a request by Commissioner Harrington perhaps, or another commissioner, and wanted to see the list and see if there's anything else that could be looked at to be cut. I could have Superintendent DeAngelis quickly go through the one slide on, you know, a lot of the questions we've received on this. I think that might be a good idea. And then we can also, you know, wait, and there was really no vote on this tonight. It was just more for education. And, you know, we highlighted a few more things that could be postponed. If you want us to do that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, is that a yes from everybody, or? Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I would like.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Sandra, why don't you go to that part of the presentation and go through that explanation about if I think the big question was if we delay more of these capital or get rid of them and not do these capital projects, if that helps our operating fund. So I think that was the question we wanted to talk about.
Great. So I prepared this slide. Hopefully it provides a little more clarity, but I kind of wanted to start out just reminding you all that we use government fund accounting, and that establishes separate funds for specific purposes. When we go through the audit, we look at how we perform the general fund, how the recreation fund, and how the capital fund performed. When we go through the budget process, the general fund and the recreation fund is broken down even further by specific taxing funds and the operational funds. So when we have the tax levy, those revenues, you know, they're split up amongst various those various individual funds within the general fund, and that has to be used for that specific purpose. So when we've designated funds to the capital fund, when we issue bonds that fund the capital fund, that has to be used for that specific purpose. Again, the fund balance policy of the 2 to 4 months of expenses, so that applies to operating funds, not the capital funds. And when we pause the planned capital projects, it will not impact the operating fund balance, the general fund and the recreation fund. It will allow flexibility and reevaluation of capital priorities because of the reduction in operating funds transferred, which we've already seen from 2019. We did have about $1 million of surplus between the general fund and the recreation fund in 2019, which we did not transfer any to capital in order to provide additional flexibility, because we knew that the pandemic was happening. And 2020, it's very likely that we will not have surplus to transfer to capital, and we're not sure how things will begin to look in 2021. So again, by pausing more capital projects, it will allow us, you know, to reevaluate priorities as we look at those projections for the capital fund when we go through the next budget process. Does anybody have any questions on that? Because I think it's been a little unclear. Do you have a question, Cindy?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm back. I can't look at screens after a certain time, so I don't look for a minute. No, I think what I said is we really can't save our way out of this. That money isn't going to help us with our financial position. And I did ask Gail if there's anything she thinks she would reprioritize, and I can't remember what you said, Gail. There was one thing that maybe would be reprioritized, but otherwise the rest of the priorities were the same.
Yeah, I said that, yeah, Hinckley might just be another one we would put on the postpone list simply
Right.
for the factors, not that we don't want to do it, but just because of the timing And because of, you know, it's $100,000 that we have left in the planning of that, plus, you know, it would be a bigger expense, and the grant cycle is July for that, and we've probably passed that, you know, based on not planning for it, so.
Right.
Did any other commissioners have any questions about how capital impacts our fund balance?
This is Commissioner Tunnel. I just had a question. Like, is the orange ones that you're proposing us postpone, or I wasn't clear on that? So forgive me for asking, but I was just trying to figure that part out.
This is Superintendent Wolf. Yes, so there's items that are highlighted in yellow, which we've previously discussed, and we determined at a previous meeting to postpone. The direction or the request from the board was to revisit the capital and take another look to see if there was anything else we could, you know, do a deeper cut. And so I updated all the projects, and the ones that I feel are potential opportunities for further cutting, I've highlighted in orange. You'll note that most of the remaining ones that aren't already highlighted are either completed or in progress, or it's a safety concern of mine.
How'd that happen?
Is Jennifer Meunier still on staff? Is she still working?
She is.
And is she keeping busy?
Oh yes, very busy.
Okay.
She's very busy with running our projects right now. I've shifted my role there, and as there's not quite as many, but I'm also much more active in operations and with safety committee and working on reopening plans. As we've 4 full-time staff, not in my department right now, so that's been a shift in how we're just allocating work right now to work through this crisis. So.
Yeah.
I would add she's also been working on the grant administration, and we did, you know, we'll go over this at the next meeting, but we received the grant for the historical gate restoration in May. That's a couple months earlier than I was guesstimating, so that was all good.
Yep.
And the woodland stuff is, you know, we're starting to have to get that in order, and I know she's been working on that too.
Right. Can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, she's also working directly with facility managers on space allocations, layout, and potential flooring plans for all their programming needs through this too. So.
Good, good. Well, I think this is good information, and I'm fine with what's here. Thank you for explaining it to all of us.
Sure thing.
Welcome.
Okay. Anybody else on capital? Commissioner Coyne, I hate to do this, but I was having some communication with Superintendent Armour about the fitness center. And okay. I think it would be really helpful, and she can expand a little bit more, because phase 4 is coming at us pretty quickly. We're assuming probably quicker than we originally thought when we started all these plans. We're looking at 2 weeks potentially. And I think if we could at least hear from the board, if we had a consent, you know, we could kind of just do a poll.
Well,
that,
I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't see I have any problem with going ahead and making having someone make a motion to go ahead with those and have a discussion on it and decide. And if we can also, I assume, even at that point, decide to sort of table it till next week if we really want to have more discussion. But I think that I'm fine with that, and I would entertain a motion from somebody to approve the. Again, we have to craft that motion to sort of include all that wording But now specifically say Centennial Fitness and Centennial Activity Center, right?
Correct, yes.
And I know just the person to craft that out because she's already done it once.
Of course, now I'm looking for my agenda again. Yeah, give me a second.
Superintendent Wolf, do you just want to throw out for consideration that perhaps your motion may not include both facilities if there's any difference of opinion, just so you don't have to uncraft that later?
Well, they can amend it as well, right?
Sure. It's a thought.
It's a thought. Yep, I appreciate that.
I can take a crack at the motion.
Oh, okay, great.
All right, so I move to approve the district's COVID-19 program and facility opening plan as presented for phases 4 or a portion of in regards to the Centennial Fitness Center and the Centennial Activity Center, with the understanding that the plan could change based on the governor's orders, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, or the Illinois Department of Public Health, IDPH direction. This action will be formally ratified at an actual board meeting with physical presence at a later date. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it.
Would we be able to just see the financial projections again for this fitness center and the
Sure.
activity, please? Thank you.
I mean, it seems like the Centennial Activity Center, since the 2020 budget versus the reopening plan total are the same, that one kind of seems like a no-brainer. And plus, I think it's nice, especially, you know, when April was talking about some of the programming they were doing for the older senior population. I think that would be good if we could start inching towards doing a little more for them, particularly since the virtual programming has not been successful with that particular demographic.
I agree on that, for sure.
Superintendent DeAngelis.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I know I was kind of stumbling through when we talked about this before, but as I'm thinking more about it, you know, we do have expenses that we're currently incurring that are allocated to the fitness center. And the opening plans here allow, well, we're in phase 3 already. So this incorporates the June estimate incorporates our phase 3 plans for revenue against what our allocated expenses are. So what you're really looking at for phase 4 is the July and August numbers. I hope that helps clarify.
Well, very much so. Thank you. That does help me a lot. I feel that the Centennial Fitness Center falls into that portion, you know, the idea that we have services to provide for our residents. That's what our goal is to provide these facilities and amenities, right? And while it would have been nice to open Centennial Pool, the numbers just didn't add up. Here, yeah, there's a decent sized swing between what our actual 2020 budget is and then the reopening plan. But it seems to me that those costs are worth it to be able to provide the services that will be rendered and you know, access to the community to a building that they're already paying for. So I think that this is probably, yes, the activity center part is really a no-brainer, but the fitness center is I think worthwhile. We're going to have to open it at some point, and we have to get members to start coming in. And so I think that it's a good thing, and we already voted to open up the pool portion of it. So I think that that's, key. Let's get that building back up and have people come into it. When they can come into it.
Sorry.
Yes, Superintendent Armour.
Just to remind
because we can't all see you.
Okay, just to remind the board that we also don't have the swim lesson revenue in there as well. I know we mentioned that once, but that could help make up a little bit of that gap that you see there in July and August.
And I guess I should raise my hand too.
Please speak. Just shout it.
So another factor into this, I don't know if we mentioned it or not, but we know for sure that, some of the area fitness centers are ready to go and open near us. And that's another thing that we have to think about, that if we don't, keep up with what our competition is, I hate to call it competition, but with the other choices that people can make to go for fitness, if we don't open and other fitness centers around us are opening, that can not only hurt these numbers, but it could hurt the future numbers.
Good points, I think. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner LeDuc.
I was just wondering, because I know we talked about, like, one of the downsides of not opening the Centennial Aquatic Center is that, those are jobs that we then won't have available. What kind of numbers do we look at for jobs for, like the high school, college students at Centennial Fitness? Are some of those positions filled by that demographic? Basically, I'm asking, is that a place where we also employ our kids?
Yep.
Yes, we do have the kids work there in the summer, and we're getting mixed reviews on across the board on what staff may want to come back and who may not. So there may be an opportunity for us to hire more of that age demographic. We really don't know until we invite staff back and see who we're actually going to need in what stations based on this 50-person capacity or wherever we end up.
Great, thank you.
Have you had staff that have been offered their positions and felt uncomfortable to come back yet, or? I'm sorry. Have you had employees that have not felt comfortable coming back that have been offered their positions at this point, or have you dealt with that yet? I'm just curious.
We haven't invited very many part-time staff back yet at all. I think we've started polling, and we're just getting to the point where we are inviting people back for some of the virtual camps. So I just approved those today. So right now we just have some polls out. We have invited some fitness center staff back, of course, for the outdoor. And there were a few people, as of the polls without an official offer that said they just weren't comfortable coming back yet.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments on the motion that's before us? If not, then I call the question.
Commissioner Leach,
No.
Commissioner O'Donnell, Commissioner Tunnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington,
Yes.
Commissioner LeDuc,
Yes.
Commissioner Leach. I'm sorry about that. Commissioner Coyne.
Aye.
Thank you very much. It's very helpful.
I'll make next meeting shorter too. Okay, any other comments? Well, there is no category for new business on this agenda because this is, so I would entertain well, I guess I can move to adjourn, can't I? Or do I have to have someone else do that?
No,
Yeah,
you
you can.
go ahead.
Second.
I move to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners.
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, have a good night.
You
Bye.
too.
Bye.